Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Halloween video. So in this one here, obviously, I'm going to be reviewing Halloween Ends. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on this. This will contain full spoilers for this movie. Yeah, I do think it's worth the watch. Like, if you're a Halloween fan anyways, I do think it's worth the watch. There are worse movies, for sure. There are worse movies within this franchise that have come out over the last 40 plus years. It's just, oh man, I didn't think that, like, how do you think this story is a good story? Like, I just don't understand. If you're a writer, how do you think this story is a good story to write? Anyways, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get more movie reviews and stuff like this. But let's talk about this movie. So this movie is the third movie of this trilogy. Apparently, according to basically everyone behind the scenes, this is the final movie, I guess, in this story. Now, I don't think that's the case. I've been seeing some reports out there that they actually will be doing like more of them eventually. But it's just in terms of this story here, in terms of like this story with Laurie Strode, or I guess with Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode, this is going to be the end of that character's story. And I think that actually makes a lot of sense. You know, when I look back at this trilogy now, it really does. I mean, weirdly, Halloween Kills, I guess, technically wasn't because Laurie was so absent from that movie. But this trilogy really feels like Laurie's story for the most part. I think Michael Myers had a really great, obviously, first movie of this trilogy. And then the second one, I think he actually had a really great, story there as well. I know I'm probably the only one that liked Halloween Kills, but I look at that movie, and the reason why I like it is because I think it got Michael Myers right. I'm ignoring so much of the story. I know the story makes no sense. I'm totally blind to it. Michael Myers is my favorite slasher, and I'm choosing to ignore that story. I know it makes no sense. Like, I know it actually makes no sense. And so that's why watching the third movie here and how much Michael Myers actually isn't in the movie, it made me actually pretty angry and pissed off. So the big villain of this movie is Corey. Corey, I thought, was actually a pretty good character. I think for the first half of the movie, or at least the first third, like quarter to about halfway around there, he was actually a really great character. I was actually thinking, like, we see him getting bullied. You know, I could see how his life just started to fall apart. And I think it actually made so much sense for the overall story here that maybe you could focus on an element like this. Like, this could be kind of exciting. Because I actually did kind of enjoy the story. Again, I ignored some of the Michael Myers stuff when I was watching it because I figured they weren't going to do that wrong, which obviously they did. But I was actually kind of enjoying the story. I was like, you know what? This reminds me a lot of Seasons of the Witch, you know? And to me, I think it works as a story. And it almost proves to me that you could do some sort of Halloween story. You could do a movie like Seasons of the Witch again and have a character like Corey and see how he sort of descends into madness. Now, again, that character is not Michael Myers. And if you have a movie called Halloween Ends, where it's this whole thing like with Laurie versus Michael Myers, you should really focus on those two characters and the relationship that these two characters have. And that's why about halfway through the movie, I noticed a switch because I was enjoying it for the first half. And then I noticed a switch about halfway through when I was like, okay, Michael's not really in the movie yet. Nothing's going on here. And then Corey started to turn a little bit, and I was like, okay, this just seems really, really bad. And I couldn't get behind the fact that he was doing these things because, like, he didn't seem that evil. And I know they were trying to focus on the fact that Corey and Michael had this connection because they looked in each other's eyes, and there was almost like this supernatural element. Now, I don't see it being a supernatural element, though you have to wonder with what this movie introduced, because Corey and Michael, you know, Michael grabs Corey, I think, by the throat or whatever, and he's trying to get away. And then I guess they both lock eyes for a second. And then you see like this montage of just like their past and whatnot and what's been happening with those characters. And immediately there's like this link, right? And so you're wondering, okay, that was a little weird. To me, I just interpret it as like, okay, well, they're visually trying to show us that there's a connection there. There's evil in both of their eyes. I think that's just such a dumb thing to do. I honestly, like, I think you could have just had the characters really just kind of staring at each other, and then there was something there. You didn't have to visually show us all these flashbacks and stuff, because I think doing that just makes the scene kind of unwatchable, to be honest, and it kind of makes it feel like you think your audience is dumb and they're not going to get that. So that's, to me, I didn't like that scene. But Michael in this sewer or wherever he is, he's weak, and basically Corey brings him somebody to kill. He kills that person, and then all of a sudden it's like he gets his strength back. That part there, that's what I mean. It's like, are they introducing this supernatural element to the character? Can Michael Myers just live off of evil and live off of killing? Like, that's why, to me, this movie didn't really make too much sense, and I didn't understand that plot because they never introduced this before. Like, that's kind of what they wanted to get away from with these movies here. Like, that was the whole point, right? Was they wanted to ground the overall story here. They really made it seem like Michael Myers was just this random person. He's just a man who terrorized them on one night in 1978, and everyone made a big deal about this person, right? And they're just trying to make him seem like he's nothing. But you see a scene like that, and you're like, no, there actually is something there. So it's kind of going against the point they've been trying to make with these movies. I think my biggest issue out of all of it was that Michael Myers just wasn't in the movie. And I think this movie's ending, I think, lacked any sort of real send-off for those two characters. Honestly, even for Laurie as well. I know they focus on Laurie a lot more, so I guess you could argue there's a better send-off for that character, which, sure, fine. But there's like no proper send-off for Michael Myers at all. Like, he shows up at the end of the movie, I guess, basically wanting to get his mask back. And I think that's one of the dumbest things that have ever happened to honestly, to Michael Myers just in general, is that one scene where Corey is just like, he's like really pissed off. He goes into that sewer, you just see Michael standing there, and then he just goes and fights him to take his mask and then runs away. Like, it's the worst scene ever. And then Michael's pissed off about all of that, and then he has to go get his mask. So then he goes to go and see, I guess he follows Corey somehow, and then follows him to Laurie's house. And that's what I hate about this whole thing, is like, then he's there, and that's how you get Michael to being there with Laurie. And so they fight. But again, like, Laurie's reaction to Michael being in that house, like, she doesn't really necessarily care. She acts like she almost expected it, right? And that was the weird thing about it. When Laurie saw Corey in that house, she literally saw him with Michael's mask, but there was no reaction to the fact that he had that mask. She had no questions about, like, well, where'd you get that mask, this and that. And so the whole thing just like plays out. They fight. I mean, it was a pretty cool fight, I will say. It's just that there was no build up to it at all. It just felt like, okay, now Michael Myers is finally in the story, but now he's dead. And they actually do kill him off. And I guess now he's officially dead because they threw him in that meat grinder or whatever that was. So, you know, I hated it. I just honestly really hated the fact that they just mistreated Michael Myers this much. I just think that it was really not the proper way to end his story here. And I just think that there was so much more that they could have done. I don't think the director or the writers here really understood Michael Myers. I thought they did based off of that first movie. I really did. But I think they really tried their hardest to get the story right in the first movie. And I think the other two movies, they didn't try as hard. Because, yeah, they sort of treat Michael like he's like this random person. And that has been the major problem here with this trilogy, is because of this message that you have where Laurie and Michael don't really have any connection besides that one night. You know, like, Michael doesn't really look at Laurie and even remember her, basically, because he just likes killing. Because you have that there, and they're not brother and sister, you know, it makes it so impossible to have those two characters together. It really does. Any explanation that you have, literally, it just, like, you're constantly trying to explain it and make it make sense, make it matter. And in the first movie, it was, well, the doctor was there and whatever. Like, the doctor wanted to reunite them, and he was just obsessed with whatever. The second one, I mean, they weren't even reunited at all. And the third one, you have Michael just wanting to go and get his mask back because Corey took it. Like, I just think it's just so pointless. And I don't really understand the hate towards having Michael and Laurie brother and sister. You know, I think there's a reason why that story has worked so well. And there's a reason why that you know, that connection is there. It's because you don't need to explain that. There's a reason why Michael is coming after Laurie. And so, yeah, with Halloween Ends, I was very disappointed with it, even with the soundtrack, to be honest. Like, I look forward to John Carpenter's work here. And with 2018, I thought it was just phenomenal. I even really liked Halloween Kills as well. It wasn't as great as the 2018 version, but there were still some tracks on there that actually I think worked really well. With Halloween Ends, it's pretty generic. There's not really anything there that sort of stands out. I feel like he kind of played it safe. I don't know if he was really involved with it. Maybe he wasn't as involved with this one. I don't know, but I just noticed that there wasn't any sort of music that really stood out to me. And so Halloween Ends, you know, like, as for what I would rate it, I'm stuck between like a 4 out of 10 and a 5 out of 10. Because obviously you look at the visuals, you look at the overall story and the performances, like, it works. It's a good movie in that sense. And when I say good movie, I just mean, like, you know, there's good elements to it. But yeah, you just look at the story overall, and I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards a 4 out of 10. You know, maybe just a 4.5 out of 10. That's kind of where I'm at right there. You know, it's definitely below average for a movie. It's enjoyable. You can watch the movie, And, you know, about halfway, you're going to start to not like it, and that's where it's going to drop. Like, I think for the first half of the movie, honestly, I was probably at around like a 6 or 7 out of 10. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, it dropped to like 4.5. So there's definitely worse movies in the Halloween franchise. I think Halloween 2, like the Rob Zombie one that came out in 2009, I think that movie is definitely worse than this one. Halloween Resurrection, I think, is worse. You know, there's quite a bit of movies. I think Halloween 6, I think, that's the one with Paul Rudd. That one is definitely worse. Like, there's a lot of other movies that I think are worse than this one. And I know for some people, you're going to disagree with that, but I think a lot of that has to do with nostalgia, because I even enjoy watching those movies sometimes. Like, except for Halloween 2 for 2009. Like, I can't watch that second Rob Zombie Halloween movie. It's too much. Probably because I watched that one in theaters and I was so hyped after the first movie because I thought Rob Zombie did a really great job with that character. He just made Michael Myers so badass. I really like that story. I like Rob Zombie's movies. I haven't watched all of them. I've watched some of them and I do like that style. And so I like the story overall. Like, honestly, I was a fan of it. I think the second one just, oh man. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. This is my review of Halloween Ends. I think that this movie just lacked anything with Michael Myers, obviously, and this story was more focused on Corey, and I think this one was probably more of like a Season of the Witch type of movie with Michael Myers just added at the end. This definitely wasn't a send-off, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.